We're live. We are live without a net.
All right. Turn your radios down, caller.
Yeah, caller, turn your radio down. All right, so let's give it a minute or two here and see if anybody else joins on. So, hello out there. If you're stopping by, thank you. We've officially done a Wednesday, a Thursday, and a Tuesday. So we'll figure out a
Don't,
schedule at some point.
hey, yeah, we like to keep everybody guessing. That way we can really maximize our exposure and,
There you go. Right, exactly. Reminds me of a little video that Dixieland Farm did today. I don't know if you happen to come across that or not. So
I have not, no.
it's very
No,
good.
Chris knows I watch his videos every now and then. My viewing habits are very limited at best, and if it's not the Curb Your Enthusiasm or Office reruns, it's really hard to hold my attention. No offense to anybody or anything.
It was good. It was just talking
Yeah,
about just sort of YouTube in general, like how YouTube has changed in the last couple of years, and folks that embrace that and they don't embrace that, and um, I don't know about you, but my experience on YouTube has changed quite a bit. And what drew you to making videos to begin with, right? Like what? I don't think I've ever asked you that.
honestly, people like you and Dixieland Farms and Bo, people, just kind of watching videos. I'm like, well, hey, I collect records too, and I know a little bit about this and that, and so
Right, right.
just kind of and I tell you what, some of those friendships that I've made. I mean, case in point, that I've made are pretty lasting, and Chris and I still talk fairly regularly. We send each other funny stuff, and so he lives just up the road from me, theoretically, anyway. So
just down in the holler, right?
well, we don't have not much hollers in this part, but if you kind of go up and over a little bit, there's where your hollers start jumping in.
There you go. Yeah, I
So
think I think that in he sort of talked about just clickbait titles and how people make how they make like the thumbnails of their videos have like the shocked faces and 50 Grail records that you have to own, that whole thing. And that's
one,
fine. And that's fine, but like I can't be bothered, right? So,
I really like Chris because I asked him one time. I was like, "How do you go about shooting videos?" He's like, "I click record and I start talking." It's like, "You don't ever do second tapes?" He goes, "Nope, I just boom boom get it done, put it out, upload it, it's done. It's that's it." So he kind of I super admire that. It's not, well, I got to edit this and I got to make sure this is nice, and so
yeah.
just get it done and throw it into the universe.
Well, and I think that's important because I think that the more time that you spend on it, um, I think it's more it's kind of the same thing about like music. Like sometimes music is just better done than being perfect.
Sure.
So that's sort of a perspective that I've always taken, where it's just like it's just better to do it than just kind of be like I got to keep doing this until it's the most amazing video. Because those are the ones that just at the end of the day they just suck. You know what I mean? Because
Well,
it's just like you spend so much time and they go nowhere.
they're just kind of very dry and very sterile at that point. It's just kind of very just kind of flat. Show yourself. Be just get it done and crank it out. Nobody's sitting here judging these things, based on you know thumbnails and all that. Maybe they are. I'm not. I could care less. If it's an entertaining video, it's an entertaining video. Don't spend too much time on it.
Well, and also hit the like button, smash that subscribe button, and leave a
Yeah,
comment. Right, that like whole thing. Like it's like as
click
Chris
that
said,
bell to get notifications.
we understand how YouTube works, right? It's just like could you just imagine being that person for the and of course they're out there, right? But it's very slim to none that this is their first YouTube video that they ever watched. So
Yeah.
yeah, so enough of that rambling. So shout out to Chris watched your video. um,
And I'll go back and watch it. I promise. I'll leave a comment.
so what would you like to talk about this evening? Should we start with we took a week off last week.
We did.
So how about a little show and tell? What are you listening to, Steve?
Well, it's funny you should ask because I pulled out three records that I've been listening to a lot this week, and I'm going to start with a record that I bet you don't have. I wonder if you've ever heard it though, and
Okay.
you may have it. I don't know that we've ever really talked about this band
Okay.
too terribly much, but the band is Rush, and the album is it's Invisible. Let's try this.
Pull it a little
Oh,
closer to your chest. Make sure your face is in the picture. Yeah, put it there. You go.
okay.
That's how it works.
All right. Well, it's
Farewell to Kings.
yes by Rush. Okay. Wow. See about editing, we won't do that.
Yeah,
We live,
that's fine.
live without a net. But yeah, it's that when I'm in the mood for Rush, that's usually one that I grab, and I've been listening to that quite a bit. It's kind of covers all bases with Rush. You've got a couple of poppy, radio friendly songs, and you've got some of their more out there.
So when is this
stuff.
from? So what? When is this? When is this?
77. So
77, okay.
it's really kind of that bridge point between their early stuff and then onto what they would do with with introducing more synthesizers and kind of being a more of a a radio friendly prog band. So this is kind of a nice blend of all of that, I think, just kind of across the board. If you're new to Rush, that's probably to me a good starting place.
So I am not the biggest Rush fan.
Sure.
So I really don't know. I know Caress of Steel, right? Is that the name of the
Yes.
album? Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's
I'm
their
familiar
third
with
record.
that one. I believe that's like their third or fourth. Am I right? Or is
Yeah,
that,
that's
okay.
yeah. No,
Okay.
you're right.
All right.
That's their third record.
So I'm familiar with that. That was one of the first records that I ever got in a thrift store. I was like, this is Rush. I believe Tom Sawyer was on that one, right? Is Tom Sawyer?
No.
Bastille Day.
Tom Sawyer's on.
No. Was that
Bastille Day.
Okay.
Bastille Day opens it up. You've got Bastille Day and like I think I'm going bald and which is a terrible song. Bastille Day rules. Just Lakeside Park.
Okay.
It's a really a cool record. But yeah, that's their third record. This is the reason I like this is like I said, it's just kind of a bridge point between all of them. You've got the longer songs, but you've got some shorter songs as well. Like Closer to the Heart. You've probably heard that song on the radio. That's the first song on side 2. So that's it's a fun record. It's really 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 a good starting place. I think if you're new or the slightest curious, that's a good starting place for that band.
I feel like I know a trivia fact about that album. Isn't there like each one of the song titles there's like a visual pun of it on the cover? It's like a Hypnosis cover. I'm pretty sure, right?
Probably, maybe.
Okay. Like
so.
the band that did it. Right? Or no, that's not that one. Okay, never mind. I'm thinking.
Maybe you're thinking of moving pictures.
Does it have like a lady on the front of it with like a?
Well,
like
they're literally. Well, that's okay. Well, yeah. I mean, Moving Pictures is them. Obviously it's the pun on motion pictures, but it's also like actually them moving pictures as well, like moving paintings.
Okay.
So there's that.
No, that's
like,
that's not the one I'm thinking about.
You're thinking about
Let me
exit stage left.
Let me. Now you're just saying things.
No, I'm not. That's a live record. I'm trying to think visual pun.
What is this? The album is Permanent Waves that I was thinking about from 1980.
Ah, okay.
So, what's your thoughts on that album?
That's actually my favorite Rush album if we're going to get down to it.
Okay.
That or Fly By Night, I kind of go back and forth, but yeah, Permanent Waves. I mean, that's what's the Natural Science closes the record, and that's probably my favorite Rush tune.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. If nobody can tell,
I'm just looking at their. Okay, so 74 is their first album. I'm not. I mean, you know this on a personal level. WDV. In Pittsburgh, right? They play the crap out of Rush, and they always play Tom Sawyer and
Working Man, probably.
Yeah. They'll play that one. And what was the one that you said was on Farewell to Kings? What was the one that was the
Closer to the Heart?
Closer to the Heart. They'll play that one too.
Yeah.
So I never really was like, and I get it; those are the big hits, but I've never really like. It's never compelled me to go and say like, oh, this is something I want to listen to. However, I will say that in a job that I worked at a long time ago, my boss, so we had a little code that we had to put in for a printer. So if we wanted
Mhm.
to print something, it would hold the document. So it was like when something came off the printer, it wasn't like you just hit print and then like you had sensitive information sitting on the printer. This is very smart
Sure.
stuff from an office security standpoint. And his passcode was 2112. And I remember him.
Hey, all
He
right.
was like, it's either 2112 or it was 5151, which is Van Halen,
The
right?
Van Halen
So it
record,
was either
yeah.
one or the other. So I remember him telling, he was like, it's either 2112 or it's 5151. Like, you're an idiot. It's better than one,
uh,
two, three, four.
yeah, but that was already taken. So I was like, all right, well, let me throw this one in there.
Yeah. So what else you got?
So
Farewell to Kings. What
okay.
else were we playing?
Um, First Tom Waits record, Closing
Ooh,
Time.
closing time. Okay.
So because I wanted to ruin an entire day and just feel blue. So no, this album kind of, I discovered this album at a kind of a really dark point in my life, and it's just kind of, not to sound so kind of corny and cliche and all that, but a lot of these songs, it's like, especially Lonely and I Hope I Don't Fall in Love with You. Those songs that kind of really just kind of connected with at that time, and it's a little bit. Well, it's a lot of bit different than what he would become known for and what he would put out. That's truly, that one's kind of, you get a hint of what's coming a little bit, but that's really kind of the odd man out in his catalog.
Well, I think it's, I think Old 55, I think that gets sort of overshadowed because it's like, oh, that's the Eagles hit. So it's
Eagles
like,
song, yeah.
I mean, even though he wrote it, right? It's like people kind of think of that as it's not a Tom Waits song, it's an Eagles
Yeah,
song. You know
no,
what I mean?
nobody knows that that's a Tom Waits song. Nobody thinks of, even if you're a fan, you think that's an Eagles song. Yeah,
Right.
that's just what you associate it with.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean that album to me, I mean, I think with Tom Waits, he's one of those artists that very easy to obsess over, and you kind of want to get his whole entire collection.
Mm-hmm.
With some of the yard sales I've been doing, a lot of times, I will everybody that's coming and looking at the records, I'll usually talk to them and kind of find out what they want, and then sort of say, oh yeah, well next time I have one, I'll have some of those records for you. And a lot of people will ask for Tom Waits records, and it's like I remember a time. I mean, his records were always hard to find, even
Mm-hmm.
even in 2005, 2006. Those were hard to find. I went to a flea market once, and the lady had about six of his records. She had like
Oh
close.
wow.
She didn't have closing time. She had oh goodness, Heart Attack and Vine, um, Blue Valentine, Nighthawks at the Diner. There's another one. There was a fourth one, but um, I think it's one of those things that like originally I had a friend that was like, hey, you should listen to Tom Waits, and he showed me I want to say it was like Bone Machine or something like that. He was like, you gotta listen to this, and what's the one that came out when you were working at the record store? I'm working at the record store same time. Real Gone, is that what it's called? What's the
Like orphans or something like
No,
that,
Orphans was
like a
that
trip.
came out soon after,
Well,
but
that came out when because we got a promo in, and there were like three or four of us, because there's a guy who actually, I worked with the record store that got me into Tom Waits, and me and him and another guy were all kind of like, well, I should get this, so nobody got it. It was just an in-store copy. So I remember specifically when that came out.
Zappa 21786, welcome. Thank you for stopping by on your Tuesday evening with us. Says closing time is really an oddball. Got to be in the right mood for Tom. I would agree. I
Oh,
think
for
that
sure. Oh, for sure. You can't. This is not the record to put on a Friday evening on payday or something like that.
right.
This
Yeah.
this is not that record. But if you're kind of going through some things, or kind of, like you said, you've got to be in the right mood, and when you're in the right mood, it's therapeutic in a way, just as
For me,
music should be.
for me, the heart of Saturday Night, that album is that that's like what his second one, right? That's the one after.
Is that, yeah? That's the follow up. Now, are you a fan of his 80s stuff? Because I think this is kind of where you and I jump off, because I like Swordfish. What is it? Swordfish
Swordfish
and
trombone,
Trombones.
yeah.
I
Frank's Wild
really,
Years.
really like Swordfish. I really like that record a lot.
I have to be in the. I mean, I have to be in the right mood. I mean, I'm guilty of that. I was talking to my brother the other day, and he was talking about the 80/20, and I know how we talked about that too, where
Mhm.
20% of your records you listen to 80% of the time, right? Where
Oh,
it's
for sure. Well,
like that
which is
that's
what
it.
what led me to kind of start weeding through this. It's like, I don't need every album by this artist, or darn near every album. When really, I listen to two.
Yeah. But I mean,
So,
songs like I can probably give you at least two or three songs off of any of his albums that are just such a strong tune. Big Time for one, that album. I don't know
mhm.
what your thoughts on that one. Cold Cold Ground, I think is an incredible song. Are you familiar with that one at all, or?
No,
On
I don't think
cold, cold ground. Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
I'll send you a link for it if it's been a while since you've listened to it. But
It's that's ringing some bells. I tell you, kind of after like, um, I would say like 85 or so, it kind of gets a little spotty for me. But that, his early records are just about perfect. But again, like everybody has said, you have to be in the right mood for them. It's not a feel good album, or it's not, let's cruise around and listen to this. They're very much,
step right
yeah.
up. Zip
Well,
zap, zip zap, zip zap,
they're
zip.
very much almost like isolation records, like kind of like Sun Ra. It's kind of like one of those things where you just kind of want to like put it on when you're by yourself.
It's to me like I was telling you, Astral Weeks. Like
Yeah,
that's a get drunk alone and feel sorry for yourself record as far as I'm
yeah.
concerned. That's not one that
And
you
you could
put.
do that with Tom Waits too.
Right. I mean, I have a lot of Tom Waits. He's even
Oh, this is
like
all I've got on vinyl. I've seen one original pressing, and that was Nighthawks at the Diner. I've never held one or anything. That's a reissue.
um I think I had, like I said, I had about 4 or 5 of those albums, sold them to one of the dudes that worked at the record store. I'm sure if I kept them, they're now like $30-$40 records. I have
Mhm.
slowly picked up a few here and there, but there's some that are just, uh, you just don't see it. You know what I mean? So he's an artist that too, like, for me, uh, I filled in the rest of his collection with CDs instead of vinyl because it was just so hard to find. But yeah, I mean, there's I don't want to grow up. I told you, listen to that song on my birthday, tears streaming down my face. It's just like there's certain tunes that are just like, yeah, they're just. What the heck is the one that's like the hog on ice? What's that one? It's like I'll go forward, I'll go forward. Da, 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 da. What song is that? I can't think of the name of
I
it. Cemetery
I
Cemetery Waltz. That's another one that
Okay.
a weird one off of one of his later albums. Um, what is he building in there? That we're like, what is he
Yeah.
building in there? Tom Waits is the man. He is probably one of my favorite artists, and uh, man, what he's been in tons of movies too. Like he's like,
He's a good actor as
yeah,
well. Yeah, absolutely.
um,
Last year they played on PBS. They played as Austin City Limits from like 78,
okay.
79. That's amazing. That has since gone out of print, but I've got it on the DVR. But that's there. You may be able to find clips of it on YouTube. But that's really really well worth your time seeking out.
Trevor S. Welcome to the chapter meeting. He says
Hey,
tips on where to start with Sun Ra. Steve, I'll give that I'll give that to you. I have two suggestions I would make.
all
Um,
right.
Space is the place. I mean, you just
Well, yes. Let me.
Angels and Demons at play. If you want older Sun Ra, if you want more jazzier kind of Sun Ra, if you want really like out there Sun Ra, I would go with the heliocentric worlds. Uh,
Yes, I would. That was my first one, and if you can get into that, I mean, there are some Yoko Ono records that would be like, it's not bad. That is. I don't mean to be rude. I'm looking for it now.
I would say pretty much everything is in between there. Angels and Demon at Play, I would say, is a pretty common Sun Ra record in the sense that it's been pressed and repressed. I don't know if it's because of who owns the rights, if it's like one of those sort of not necessarily eminent domain ones, but it's like it's pretty loose on who owns it. That's on like the jazz side of things. If like if your taste in jazz is sort of vanilla, like Miles Davis kind of blue, Dave Brubeck timeout kind of thing, if that's like your look at jazz, then Heliocentric Worlds is on the complete opposite end of the spectrum.
So that's one that I would suggest. Gosh, there's one, and I don't want to get up and and move away from the camera and all that,
and show that you're not wearing any pants.
No, I'm not. So that has a lot to do with it as well. But gosh, I'm gonna sound so silly, but it's got a Peak album cover. It's one of his early records. And you can pick up his reissued stuff. Fairly inexpensive. I mean, it's not dirt cheap or anything like that, but it's fairly inexpensive. Heliocentric Worlds, start there and just kind of explore. The guy has, I don't know how many, probably close to 100 albums.
Yeah.
So there's really no real good starting place. And maybe, like Mark said, space is the place. Just kind of dip your toe in and just kind of see if it's for you. That later era Coltrane is similar to it in some regards. And the guy I'm fixing to talk about too. See, look at how we do this. Look at how this bridge is so perfect.
Thank
My
you,
second
Trevor.
favorite. Yes, absolutely. And let us know what you think, please. I go back and forth on who my favorite jazz musician is. Some days it's McCoy Tyner, and some days it's Pharaoh Saunders.
Okay.
So, are you familiar with this?
So,
good Lord.
Yeah, you just kind of not that album in particular. Just put it down lower. You got to on the chest. There you go. Perfect.
But nobody can see it now. Here, why don't I go like this?
There you are.
Oh,
no pants.
It's shorts. Look, I got shorts on. I'm gonna stand up and find that record.
So tell us about Pharaoh Saunders.
So this is Pharaoh Saunders is like I said, he's one of my favorite musicians, period. Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. This is an album that I know John Sinclair was a big fan of, and I know the MC5 was a big fan of. And that's what kind of led me to it. And it's another album, just like most of them, that I kind of discovered while working at the record store and just absolutely fell in love with it. If you've never heard Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt, do yourself a favor. It's a very emotional song, and what Pharaoh Saunders does on a saxophone, I think is
sax, though, right? He's soprano, soprano sax. So,
but what he does with that, I've never heard anybody else play with such passion and such just beauty that he does. Pharaoh Saunders is probably my favorite jazz musician. Again, like I said, McCoy Tyner is certainly up there as well.
I have one album by him on CD. I can't remember what it is offhand. It might even I want to say it might even be like a live at the Village Vanguard or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I know I think it's on Impulse, but I don't. Again, that's not necessarily a band that I'm
No.
Nate Bouchard, how you doing? He says better than Kenny G.
This is true. This is true.
Kenny G, king of the soprano saxophone,
a king of elevator sounds, and not the 13th ones.
That's funny. Yeah. Good old Kenny G. So we got a handful of folks. We got 6 people in the chat. Hello, everybody.
Hey, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for checking us out. And hey, there you go. Zappa 21786 says picked up. What is the name of that album? Themby? For a quarter 7 years ago. Dug that.
Look at that. So, yeah, it's great. I mean, those first few Pharaoh Saunders records, I mean, they're great. They're on the same level as stuff he did with Coltrane and all that. And when Coltrane started doing more of his astral stuff and things like that, he was right there with it. And that's just kind of a nice companion piece. And it's great, man. I can't recommend that album highly enough. So
Trevor says,
but that's what I've.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I can't recommend it high enough. And that's kind of what I've been listening to lately.
Trevor says, thanks, guys. Love later Coltrane and Ornette. So I'm into a lot of out there stuff. Like you
Good.
said, there's so much stuff, and I was just not sure where to start. And I think one thing about Sun Ra too is don't be afraid to just get some stuff, right? Like there's a reason why Sun Ra is always people are like, oh, Sun Ra, you got to listen to Sun Ra. Like it's almost like you can't go wrong, and even if it's something that if you don't kind of know what you were looking for, uh, just kind of keep looking. Like the earlier stuff is more jazz oriented, and then it's the later stuff is more free jazz oriented. So, Steve, let's get to it. What are you going to show?
Oh no, you keep talking.
All right.
I'm digging for this. So you do your thing. I'm
Yeah,
looking
no,
for
that's cool.
for this. It's going to drive me crazy.
It would
yes,
help
for
if your records were in
recommendations.
alphabetical order.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, I think that in Sun Ra is again one of those musicians that like you just hear about, but it's just like there's not like a really like definitive entry point for him. I think that
there's really not, and I think a lot of people say, "Oh yeah, I dig Sun Ra," and it's like, okay, well, and that's kind of about as far as it goes. It seems kind of one of those things that is Here's another record. I'm sure you've heard this. Eric Dolphy's Out to Lunch.
Yep.
That's another amazing record. But yeah, like you've said a number of times before, there's really no real good jumping in place for him, because it's so vast and there's so many that you can kind of pick, and it's all good though.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, what have you been listening to lately? I've kind of
yeah, no, I that's cool, man. I've been Nate Burchard says Out to Lunch is incredible. So
yes, absolutely.
I think that's probably his like definitive album. That's like, when you say, hey, what album should I get by him? That's the other thing too, is like Sun Ra doesn't have that like, here's the album that's like his hits or whatever. Like you think about somebody like like Jimmy Smith, right? Like you can say like, even though Jimmy Smith has like a ton of albums, he's a ton of
the sermon and
really terrible, but yeah, like you can the sermon or like Root Down or something like that you want to do. So what I've been listening to, Marty had in one of the Facebook groups was talking about the best of the Animals.
Oh, very cool.
And I played this a couple of times last week. Well, maybe this week or last week. I can't remember when he posted that. And it's funny because it's like this is like an album that like absolutely changed my life. Like, and I'd mentioned like there's definitely a point that I remember before I got that album, and then there's the point like after I got that album. And
wow.
Again, we talk about these cathartic albums that are like, hey, these were life changers. I was in a weird spot, but like if you're in a weird spot and like you hear like got to get out of this place,
it's my life.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just like there's those tunes that are just like you don't really have. I don't know. There's not many songs that sort of like hit on that level, like that talk about like you just gotta go. You know what I mean? Like I can't really think of any other ones off the top of my head, but that's been really heavily played. Let's see. I was just checking the chat. I'd be curious, like anyone in the chat, what are your thoughts on the best of the Animals? What are your thoughts, Steve? What is your thoughts on the best of the Animals? Are you familiar with this particular album?
I am absolutely. Don't ask me to find it because I kind of, I'll promise I'll focus and I'll stop looking for that. But I'll tell you what, I'll post it on our Facebook page. Okay. So anyway, but yeah, of course I'm familiar with that. That was kind of my introduction to them. But I tell you, the Animals, Love Is. Have you ever heard that record?
Oh yeah, yep.
So that's kind of the period that I kind of. I'm not going to say I prefer it, but Love Is a record that I. When I want to hear some Animals, that's usually the one I grab of all albums. So, but yeah, that early stuff. I mean, that's
like I think it's like this is
that's on point with the early Stones and early Kings, and I mean that's certainly right there with it, in my opinion.
Well, I think the thing too about the very early Animals is, they were a singles band. So a lot of those, like their albums are, like I think about the later ones like Animalism and things like that. Like, um, those ones are like they're good albums, but like the singles really stand out. So having a collection like this, um, I mean, I got the '80s that Abco CD at first,
Mm-hmm.
and it has more tracks than this, and it also has this has like some of the album versions. The what was the one that was on here? I think it was even We Got to Get Out of This Place was like a different version. It was like not the just like the things he was saying was not the same as the single version. So I
Oh wow.
really wasn't too, I don't know. I first time I noticed that. But yeah, this album was a life changer for sure. Um, Let me just
Now
check.
they seem a little bit more grittier than maybe even the Stones. There was always a certain kind of I don't know what you would want to call it, but just there's some machoism and whatnot with some of those early Animals. Like they just sound like a real like a
Yeah.
tough band. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, and I think that, they sort of fit in where to me, you have like the Yardbirds and they were sort of like a Stones light. They weren't good as, say for instance the Beatles or the Stones, just as from a songwriting standpoint. Um, and I just think too, they sort of had that, that revolving door of members so it's cool to see too like that early part of that, and then when Eric Burden got exposed to the San Francisco sound, and then he does Sky Pilot and San Francisco Nights, and starts doing the Phil Spector stuff and all that. So it's cool to just kind of hear that earlier music. And I don't know, it's just to me it's such a time capsule, you know what I mean? Like it's just
Yeah.
like it feels like 1964 or 1965, or and it doesn't feel like it's not 1972 at all, or that bloated arena rock or something like that. You know what I mean? Like it's just very, very specific. It's almost like Jerry and the Pacemakers, right? Like Ferry Cross the Mersey and stuff like that. Like
Okay.
those guys are in such like when that stuff became passe, like he was done. Like you
Yeah.
can't, there's no way. But Eric was sort of able to, and hooking up with War as we got into the
Oh.
70s
Oh
and stuff like
yeah.
that,
Yeah.
right? He knew like you got to stay relevant or you're gone, right? And I think that
Yeah.
maybe he knew that from hanging out with the Tremolos and the
And
Shadows and all those
d-
all those like needles and pins, right?
well, I think that I mean those early War albums that those are all so good.
Oh
Declares
man,
War and yeah,
yeah.
those are
Roland
what is
Kirk talking about jazz
yeah.
musicians where he's talking about that.
So
So Nate says there are 3 or 4 Animals best of albums with very little overlap. Can't really go wrong with them. I absolutely agree.
yeah.
Zappa says, I feel the same way about the Stones with how they were great singles band at first. Yeah, and they, and really, the Stones as well had those albums that, um, you just as they sort of developed and had to continue to stay relevant, right? Like you start getting Mama's Little Helper and Paint It Black, like as Aftermath comes out, and
Would you say that Aftermath is the first essential Stones album?
see, it's so weird though because the UK version and the US version are just completely different. Like I
Okay.
mean, as far as with what songs are on there. So like if you listen to the US version, it's more of a dark album to me. Maybe just because Painted Black is on there, but just sort of the running title is like a lot of like the real snotty punkish Rolling Stone songs is what I mean, right? Like
Oh,
just kind of like
Stupid Girl and
yeah, exactly,
all
right.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas the other one, the UK version is a little bit more of a pop oriented album. In my thoughts, that's
Yeah.
just my living in
I
my
can see that.
world.
But would
Um,
you say that like what? Okay, because there's a point to this. What's the last like last essential groundbreaking gotta have it Stones record, and why is it
dirty,
Tattoo You?
dirty. When was it dirty work? Um,
Yeah,
that's tough. I think.
it's Tattoo You, right?
eh, I mean, today, right now, right this minute, yeah, it's Tattoo You. But I like Steel Wheels. I like Steel Wheels. I like Voodoo Lounge. It's hard to like, you know.
Yeah, I like about half of both those records. I like about half of Steel Wheels, half of Voodoo Lounge. But I think pound for pound, I think Aftermath is probably the first. And this doesn't mean like, oh, you need Aftermath and everything that comes after it. But I think that Aftermath is kind of where it starts. I mean, you could maybe make a case for Out of Our Heads, but I think really it starts at Aftermath, and then it kind of, for me anyway, it kind of ends at Tattoo You. And there's some albums you can pull and toss out, like Black and Blue.
Yeah,
well, Emotional Rescue is the worst thing they've ever done. I'll argue that point with everybody. You come with Some Girls, which is one of the best things they've ever done, and then you follow it up with Emotional Rescue. Go figure.
I mean, again, it's tough, and I think you were even saying, what were you listening to the other day that was like, was it a live album or was it you were listening to the outtakes on Tattoo You, and you were saying that like
they were great
on there. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Some of those outtakes are really great. It's like, man, with just a little more spit and just a little more polish, they could have really put those on a couple of those like Undercover the Night or Dirty Work, and kind of made it somewhat enjoyable then.
So yeah, we're getting some interesting comments in the chat. We're getting
please
Exile, and that's it.
That's it. Period.
Started with Steel Wheels, so that would be my pick. Overall, I'd say Tattoo You. Trevor says maybe Goat's Head Soup. But yeah, I mean, it's so tough. Like that's a Stone song too, isn't it? So tough. But yeah,
too tough.
Too tough. There's a lot of those sort of points in their catalog that are just like, I have to listen to those songs.
I think you could make the case for Beggar's Banquet to Exile, or no, Beggar's Banquet to Goat Head Soup. I think those albums in between, every single one of those are essential, and it's some of the best music that's ever been made. I would say that that personally, I would throw in, with that grouping, I would throw in Some Girls. I would toss in maybe Aftermath and maybe Tattoo You, and just call that would be the bulk of the Stones. Yeah. Where I would think that, like, okay,
stuff like you think about.
See, I'm not a big fan of It's Only Rock and Roll.
Right.
I like about half that album. Short and Curls is just terrible. Fingerprint File's amazing. That's so great. What a great way to close that record.
Yeah, that's one that's sort of like their first like, whoops, what did we do there?
Well, yeah, it's a huge dip. I mean, it really is. It's a drastic drop from Goat Head Soup to go to that.
Yeah, for sure. Nate says Steel Wheels was an introduction for them for a lot of Generation X. Not necessarily of Generation X, Nate, but when I was in 6th grade, that's when Voodoo Lounge came out. Was that 94?
94, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of that was like, oh my goodness, the Stones are back. The Stones are back.
I remember because I used to watch MTV, kind of like Weird Paul did. I used to watch MTV all the time, and I remember seeing Love Is Strong all the time. And I think,
which is a great tune.
Oh yeah. And I think Beavis and Butthead made fun of it too, and like that was kind of like a rite of passage. Like that's how I kind of discovered like a lot of like singles that I really liked, was by like watching like Grim Reaper, See You in Hell, like them making fun of that. I'm like, yeah, that's terrible, but gosh, that's a cool song.
Yeah.
So
I wanted to show too, a quick tangent. We were talking about what we're listening to here.
Yeah.
I showed you this earlier in the week. You can all join in, which is an Island Records, the first compilation to come out on Island Records. And it's sort of like Traffic and Jethro Tull and Fairport Convention and who else? Nirvana, the original Nirvana. John Martin's on there. Spooky Tooth. Spencer Davis.
What Spooky Tooth song is on there?
Sunshine, Help Me.
Okay.
Have you ever heard that one?
Yeah, I'm a pretty decent Spooky Tooth fan. I was just playing. That was only yesterday, not too long ago.
I looked into the mirror, and it poisoned my mind twice. You ever heard that one?
I have not.
The Mirror. It's the name of the album. That's a well,
Is that the one with the dude getting the nails driven into his head?
No, it's like there's like a silhouette of a dude on the front, and then like the jacket comes off, and he's sort of like a space kind of thing. It's from like '76, something like that. Fantasy
Oh wow, okay.
Satisfier is on there as well too. Um, it's a weird album. Check it out. I have a good story for that. We're not going to tell it tonight, but I do have a good story about that. And so this is like the first Island Records compilation, and I believe it was UK only. So that's like 14 shillings, I think is what that is. That was prior to the decimal thing there in the UK, right? But it's just a lot. Like I really love, I love like sort of the British pastoral folk stuff like that. I know that this is where we separate, but song from Jeffrey from Jethro Tull, probably their best tune. That's on this.
Oh, I don't know about all that, kind sir. You forgot about Cup of Wonder.
Oh yeah, I don't have that handy, but yeah, I was listening to that a little bit this week.
Let me bring you
songs from the wood. I listened to that probably twice too.
That's a great record, man. I'm not a huge Tull fan, but I'll throw down on some songs from the wood. That's terrific.
Yeah. Island had one hell of a selection of artists. They sure did. There's some great. There's another. I think it's the third one that came out. It was called Bumpers. It was a double compilation, sort of like those Warner Brothers Lost Leader compilations, and that has like Nick Drake tracks on it and Richard Thompson, and that one is like amazing if you ever see that. It's just a yellow cover with like a pair of shoes in the front. And I also did a video about this. It's called Think I'm Going Weird, which is on the Grapefruit label. All of those, psychedelic stuff from, the British psychedelic music from 66 and 68. Pick this up if you see it in the store or order it online. I think I got mine for about $35 or so. So
Very
I've been
cool.
listening to a lot of that stuff. I did want to show one thing real quick too about what I've been watching, because I think we need to show this because you and I were both. This was like one of the greatest things of all time. Just happened to be at the bookstore the other day,
Ooh,
and
the granddaddy of them all, if
we
you
found it.
will.
Yep, on of course Coliseum Video VHS. So
Man,
the first WrestleMania, where you basically called me and said, if you don't pick that up, I'm driving to Pittsburgh and gonna find that. So
I was putting my shoes on.
so it was fun watching that on VHS.
Did you watch it? Okay.
I did. The tape's
How
in
about that on?
pretty good condition. Pretty good condition. I don't think there's really much. There's not really like anything like extra content that I feel that's on there that's not on any of the DVDs or anything like that. So more just a curiosity, and it's in its bulletproof case. So yeah.
We got Big John Studd taking on Andre the Giant Daddy in a body slam contest, if you will.
I mean, it's fantastic. Oh, and it also reminds me, this day in history, from a wrestling standpoint, is 24th anniversary of the Montreal Screwjob. Brett screwed Brett, Steve. Just want to let you know that.
Hey, I agree with that, man. Michaels had nothing to do with it. He had no idea what was coming.
So,
you can tell I'm completely biased on that,
but yeah, that was definitely
it was always Team Michaels, man, never Team Hart, even as a kid, man, even as a kid.
Yeah, but that was fun to see that was 24 years ago. So
you want to hear a funny story?
Let's hear it.
So you know the Shawn Michaels theme song if you don't look it up, and then you'll get this joke. So I was at the record store. I was like, one of the first ones in there is before they even put on music. And like, you know where I'm going with this. So I had switched my ringtone to that, and I meant to switch it back. And so like first thing in the morning, I'm a sexy boy, and starts going off. I'm like, okay, and they're just looking at me, and so
yeah. Oh man. That's
Maybe it's not funny.
no, no. I mean, that's especially in 2005, 2006. That's not necessarily something that you or people are going to know what's that is about.
Now
So
wrestling's become a little bit more accepted,
yeah.
at least in some circles. So
Zappa asks, "Have you guys watched Dark Side of the Ring episodes on Vice?" Yes.
yes, most I've seen most of them. Um, I have not seen the Luna Vachon one, but I what's the one prior to that? The Brian Pillman one was excellent.
Oh yeah.
That's one of the. Have you seen that one, Mark?
Yeah.
That's one of the best ones they've ever done. Like they're all really good, but that one I just thought was just a little bit extra to that. That one was really good.
The part that really got me was when he rolled the Humvee
Yeah.
and was like, and like that was like the beginning of the end for Brian Pillman, which is like I know you and I have talked about before, where we've like we talk about the what ifs, like where would he be in the grand scheme of things. And his son is wrestling in what, AEW right now? Is that
AEW,
yeah
his son's terrific. Brian
yeah
Pillman Jr. Excuse me, he's really great. What's really interesting about those is I don't think you need to be a fan of professional wrestling to really enjoy just the quality and the stories that are behind them, and a lot of them you can kind of pinpoint exactly specifically what happened where the wheels kind of fell off, and that's what I think is kind of really interesting. Like you have these, this really cool build up, this everything's seems to be going okay, and then it's just a drop, and that's what's really interesting is most of them there's that specific point that you can point to and say, okay, that's where everything kind of went off the rails.
yeah. And I think just in general, I mean, that era of wrestling is just it's just perfect for that kind of drama. I think that
Mhm.
nowadays it's in the PG era, it's that safety is a concern, and you know what I mean, like, and they are kind of focused on what is the longevity of the John Cena's of the world, and things like that. So it's interesting how that era is very dark. You know what I mean? That's a
Yeah.
dark part of things. So um, yeah, I agree, Zappa. They do a great job with those. They don't leave a stone unturned. And and
Mhm.
it's almost like the VH1 behind the music's like those were those were done very well, but it's like exactly the same. Like it doesn't matter who it is. Like there's been a few that have been sort of obscure to me, like people that I really didn't know, and it's like, okay, I have to watch this. It's like, oh hey, here's the Jefferson Starship behind the music.
Poison's got it behind the music.
Yeah.
Let's watch this.
Yeah, that's great. So, um, but yeah, I think wrestling in the modern era it's great that it's still around, and I think that there is such a focus where you think about the last 10, 20 years that a lot of the big names are just vaporized, right? They just
Quickly too. It seems like
yeah
every for a while there, and I guess too to a certain extent, it seems like every year you'd lose 3 or 4 really key names and big names and key guys.
yeah,
So
and
yeah, I think it.
you and I can talk wrestling at incredible lengths, and
And we will.
and we and I don't want to bore our viewers or listeners or however you're tuning in this evening, and or watching the stream the next day, maybe washing dishes, whatever the case may be. But um, I think that in popular culture, uh, wrestling is so important. You know what I mean? Like I feel like to me, it's just as important as music and things like that, and it's just fun to kind of reminisce of those glory days for me, 1995, 6, 7, 8, where my life revolved around every Monday night and what happened, and all that stuff. So it's cool that, you know,
You would kind of go back and forth on the school bus the next day, and
yeah,
as because I was always a WWE guy, and a friend of mine was a WCW guy, and would kind of like exchange notes, on the way to school.
Trevor asks us, you all been to any concerts in the past year? So my last concert that I went to, I have eaten some concert tickets. I actually there's a show tonight that I had been rescheduled, and I did not go to. In fact, we could probably get in the car right now and we could go and still see the headlining band since it's only 9 o'clock at night. But
Who's
um,
that?
there is a guy, and his name is Pokey Lafarge. Are you familiar with this guy?
Not at all.
Pokey Lafarge is like he's sort of this dude that's doing kind of like throwback music from like the 20s. Like if you think about kind of the anthology of American folk music, it's like this guy's
Okay.
like living this, right? Like think about like if you're into glam rock and you're like I'm in a glam rock band and like it's your entire life. This is what Pokey Lafarge
So
is
it's like
to
steel. So
music
it's
of the
like
20s.
steel. So it's like Steel Panther for like Glenn Miller fans.
I don't know the reference, but I'm just gonna agree with you because we don't really
Fair
know.
enough.
So Pokey Lafarge and Esther Rose. Esther Rose is she is like an indie, really just only has like one or two albums out. I saw her open for Nick Lowe like
Oh wow.
3 years ago, and this is the first time that she's come around since then. And of course, me and the missus were gonna go, and it got rescheduled because of COVID, and then again and again and again, and it was tonight. So yeah, I'm just not ready. I'm not really sort of ready to do the large crowd things.
Yeah.
Back in whatever it was April May when Dead and Company was announced. Um, they came to the Blossom Music Center in Ohio, which is pretty close to me from Pittsburgh. It's maybe an hour and a half, hour 45 minutes, something like that. Um, and we just sort of were like just not ready to do it. So yeah, no. So I haven't seen any concerts, and Steve, I can speak from you. You have not seen any concerts at all. So
No, no.
um,
I'm honestly I'm not a huge fan of going to concerts, and my daughter's she's 3, she's high risk, and so I kind of limit my exposure and things like that to keep her safe. So no, I haven't been to, and plus where I'm at, not a whole lot of big names kind of come through. So kind of it's fairly easy to make that decision.
so Marshall Tucker Band not playing in town. So
They they're playing each. So funny story
yeah, I
about
know.
that. You
That's
want
why
to know?
you. Yeah,
Oh, okay,
that's what
okay,
I did.
okay. Yeah.
I'm
All
poking
right.
the bear
So,
here. I know.
okay.
Yeah.
So my wife's grandmother called me and she's like, "Hey, I've got a funny story to tell you." I said, "Okay." She goes, "Now you like Marshall Tucker Band?" I was like, "Yeah, they're pretty good. I'm familiar with them." She's like, "Well, I went and the gentleman who the band is named after, he's blind and he needed some help and things like that. And so my grandmother volunteered to run a couple of errands for him and whatnot, and she brought everything back to him. And he was playing. He goes, "You want to see me play some piano?" She's like, "Sure." And so he was playing some hymns and singing, and they talked for a little bit, and she said, "Well, hey, I saw that Marshall Tucker Band is playing next month. Are you going to go see him?" Because no, I don't like their music. I thought that was terrific.
You don't like the Marshall Tucker Band?
So yeah, those guys are all. I don't know that there's any original members in that band anymore.
I'm gonna climb the highest mountain and jump off and die.
Ain't nobody gonna know. It's like,
Flute
all right.
solo. Yeah,
I,
they're no,
I
they're
feel like
good.
there's steps we can take before we get to that point, but
Right, exactly. Just kind of looking through the chat, we got a couple of folks talking here. Nate said he saw the Descendants and Toad the Wet
oh,
Sprocket. So there's
I'd
some
love to see the Descendants, man.
there's
That's
some
one of my favorite
throwbacks.
bands. Yeah,
Um,
Milo Goes to College, man.
that's a great album.
It's perfect.
Craig saw ZZ Top in July, George Thorogood in September. And Trevor says Pokey is great. Pokey Lafarge is cool. Like we were more so going for Esther Rose, but again, Pokey's, he's cool too.
Let's check it
Um,
out.
and then Craig says, speaking of live shows, the Dave's Pick subscription is up for pre-order. Craig, I don't know if you saw that the Dave's Picks #1 is coming out on vinyl. I think they were only pressing 5,500 copies of that. Of course, the Grateful Dead is not a band that is conducive to listening to on vinyl. My personal opinion.
A 12 disc set.
third side etched. But from a financial standpoint, and I'm not a financial advisor, but buying that album and just leaving it sealed and just putting it on your shelf for 3 or 4 years is probably a really good idea. So probably better than buying WIA stock. The so the Warner Electra Atlantic whatever stock that it is, which yeah, they just had tanked earlier in the year from
Yeah,
whatever. Anyhow, buy that record and just
sit on it.
sit on it, and you'll be happy that you did. So but yeah, I got the subscription. Steve, did you do it? Have you pulled the trigger on it yet? Or
No, 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 not yet. It's one of those things I need to buy two and then keep on one. But if it's a show I really want, it's nothing against 90 Dead. I love 90 Dead just like most people do. But I just kind of feel like in the past 3 or 4 years we've just kind of been hit over the head with 90. I keep waiting. Is this a live unboxing?
there you go. There it is.
That is. Hold it to your chest.
Hold it to your chest. Hold it to your chest. Yeah. But we got an extra thing. Like, this was what was cool was they only said, yeah, you're gonna get 4, because normally it's like you get 4 and then you get a bonus disc, which sometimes is like 4.5, can be 5. But like they did, even the other one was like a double show, so they got like. You got like 6 shows this year but again, they did like 80s and 90s. It was like almost a way to. Could you imagine if it was like always the 60s stuff that they did? Like, you go on Reddit, people be like, "This is what I think."
Yeah, well, I'd be okay with that.
Right. Release the shows from the Ark. That like that. Like, that's all it is. Like, we need a box set for the Ark.
I want the Mago's Pizza Parlor sets. What's you
remember what I was saying, where I was like, it's gonna be all the Reckoning shows, the Warfield. And
I was gonna say,
but and then I was like, and I like,
dude, I keep waiting for that set. The Radio City from 1980.
It'll never happen.
Why? Why? Of course it will.
Because here's what happened. There's 2 things. So the one thing is, since they were going to release the albums for it, a lot of that stuff just got chopped up. So it's like the actual master tapes didn't happen, because I think they were going to try. They made the film out of it. They were going to do, they did Live Dead, or not Live Dead. Is that what's called? What's the one? The
Live Set.
Dead Set.
Yeah,
Dead Set, and then they did Reckoning. So all that stuff is like, it just doesn't exist, because I think they were like erasing over tapes and things like that. This is what I read on Reddit. The other thing is, the acoustic shows were pretty much the same 10 or 12 songs through the entire run. That's the Warfield run and the Radio City run.
Well, but when they released Dead Set and Reckoning, like 15 years ago, where they had all the bonus tracks and they made them both a double disc.
Yeah,
I mean, there's that's outtakes. No,
it would just be the same thing. It would be that double disc Reckoning with Sage and Spirit, and then I forget what the other bonus track was on that.
Right.
It would just be that over and over and over again for 15 nights. And then there wasn't really too much. Steve, I did a spreadsheet on this. Do you remember? I did.
Yeah, I did. No, I do. It's just so goofy, but I love it, because this is. Tell me you're in a cult without not. Tell me you're in a cult without not. Oh, I can't even talk. Tell me you're in a cult without telling me you're in a cult. Like Manson. So it's like, no, I'm serious. Like, this is the kind of stuff that we get into, but. There has to be some material with Al Franklin there and everything else. He's probably got some tapes. There's tapes out there, man. They may not be soundboard quality, but
Brent,
there's got.
We got Brent. He's been in the band for 5 minutes.
Dude, I'm telling you, there's got to be some stuff out there.
Well, there is, and there's stuff on.
But it's the same set list and all that kind of stuff,
right? Yeah. So I mean, it's like and if you look at like Spring '90 had like 140 some unique songs across how many shows it is, like 10, was it 10 shows or something like that? Which that's pretty amazing. Like
That's a great box set. So good to see you. That's a great box set. That
and the other
90,
one, right?
they were cooking, man. They were cooking in 90.
I definitely have regrets of not getting that when that was out. So now it's, a mortgage payment to get that.
I got you.
But yeah, so I
I've
don't.
got copies I can help you out with.
No, I do too. I do too. So don't worry.
Oh well, then forget it.
Don't forget the copies. Never mind. I was gonna. We're not. I'm not gonna say anything incriminating on the internet. Um,
He's
uh,
bootlegging
yeah,
bootlegs.
I'm bootlegging the bootlegger. Trevor, he wanted the Greek 1982. Craig says he wants to hear the Deer Creek shows.
Speaking of 82, I played Austin 82 the other day. That Little Red Rooster is the best they ever did. I love the Greek from 85. I know 85, a lot of people aren't hip and into 85, but I tell you, there, especially Red Rocks, there are some really amazing stuff on 85. Every shakedown they did in 85, I think, oh, that's the best shakedown they ever did,
Yeah.
which I know is a bold statement to make, but dude, please don't sleep on mid to late summer 85. Don't. It's there's some really cool stuff there.
I think so. I did a project. This was probably 2015. I think was when it was. It took me from 2015 to about 2018. So it's been almost 2 years doing it. But I took every single Grateful Dead track that I could possibly get. So this is the 30 Days of the Dead is happening right now on dead.net.
Right.
You can get a new track every day. The kudos, by the way, Steve. I got 2 in a row. Kind of fallen off the wagon here. I haven't been like, bugging you with this where it's like, no, it's not that show. No,
it's not spring of 73. I'm telling you, it's June of 72.
I don't hear the piano playing the way that Keith played it in 73.
That sounds like Brent, not Keith.
It's usually a pretty easy thing to do, but yeah, that's the way it is.
Are there Michael McDonald backing vocals? No. Okay. No left. No disrespect to Brent. I love Brent.
But so I basically listened to every piece of Grateful Dead that I could get my hands on. I put all the live releases that I had, all of the Dick's picks, all the Dave's picks. Just pretty much anything that was out there, along with a lot of stuff that I had gotten off of archive.org. And I
or Sugar Megs, that's another good place.
Exactly, yeah. And I listened to it in chronological order. And man, it took me like 2 years, but just kind of getting a focused listen on it, and as you went along to the shows, and there was a lot of just amazing stuff out there, from the like 1971 Capitol shows, those ones which were like,
the best run of the Dead, February to April 71. Capitol shows was the peak. That's it, man.
The 72 stuff, the run up to Europe 72, all of Europe 72, and then of course Veneta, Oregon, and it's it's one of those things that like just hearing those little like changes as you went along, or it's like, I would just be like, Sam, I just heard the very first Feels Like a Stranger. You know what I mean? Like, like they haven't played this yet. Like, just kind of experiencing it that way. If you have the option to do that, even if you do it on a small scale, if you can do all the Dave's picks or all the Dick's picks, if you could do that, I mean, that's over 70 shows just between those two that you can just do in order. They had released, and the reason I had done that was because they had just released that 30 Trips Around the Sun. So just kind of listening to each one of those years, and it took me a long time to do it, but yeah, man, there's so many gems in there, so many gems in their catalog that's just fantastic. So
now, did you listen to these shows from start to finish, or did you just kind of?
Yes.
No kidding.
It was a focused listen, because that was like I told myself, like, because I used to, years ago, I don't know if you've ever been like this. Like, if you need music to fall asleep, you just fall asleep with headphones in, wake up in the middle of the night, like half choking yourself kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, bringing those nightmares on, things like that. I used to do that all the time. I don't do that anymore. But I would, I would give it a focused listen and be like, okay, I'm going to listen, and then I could do things. And there would be days that would be like, I would do yard work for 4 or 5 hours on a Sunday, and it would just be like,
So you can knock out half a show then, right?
right, yeah, exactly. You listen to the first set of 1973 or whatever, but no, like that, even that, like the Wake of the Flood, when that stuff started coming in, and the Horn Tour that September, that fall, where they were playing with Doug Sham, like College of William and Mary, it was just fantastic.
Very cool.
Trevor did ask, did you get the St. Louis shows? Yeah, I showed them. I have the box. I still have yet to open it up and get into it, but I did get the St. Louis shows. So yeah, I'm kind of ready to dive into that. So Craig says, okay, that's a task. Challenge accepted. So Craig, report back in 3 years and let us know how it went. So, but yeah, I think if you're a Grateful Dead fan, that is a challenge that is fantastic. And I when I only had a couple of the Dave's picks, when it was like maybe like the first like maybe 8 or 9 that I had, every time a new one would come out, I would listen to them in order. And then it'd be like, oh, hey, here, wherever this, where this album sort of fit in, and I would do that, and I would just kind of build on. And I've been doing that lately. That's more so how I approach it.
Did you kind of like leave a review like really cool China writer, or
I did. I wrote it down on some note cards, and of course that's been lost to the may the four winds blow you away. So, but I would write down stuff, or it would be like if it was like the first. But I'll tell you what, those are that early, like some of those like Pigpen Turn on Your Love Light things where it was like a half an hour long. I was just like,
get your hands out of your pockets.
Yeah, but he did do one where it was like him and Janice. There's one.
Yep. Yeah. In 70, I want to say, it's 70 though.
Yeah. But there, yeah, I think that was my favorite part where like you would hear like a new song being debuted, and like we were talking about that Capitol Run, that was like the first Loser and the first I don't know, help me out. There's maybe like 4 or 5 songs that were like
first
Bird song,
first bird song, first Bertha, what, because that one that not View from the Vault. What's the one that they did?
Yeah, that's it.
Is it View from the Vault?
Not View from the
Vault. That's not View from the Vault.
Like Two from the Vault, or I think it's
two. Yeah, three from the Vault is that's kind of where that was the debut of like 3 or 4 different songs.
Yeah, and that was
Loser Deal.
That's Deal. It, yeah, Loser Deal. You're right. Yeah, the Bird song. I think there's one more that we're missing.
I want to say Bertha maybe, but that doesn't sound right. But anyway, regardless, that's again.
It was Jerry's solo stuff. It was definitely those ones from Jerry's solo stuff and whatever. But it's cool to hear that kind of thing. So,
well, and all of those are really great, especially the first one was that show from '75.
Yeah.
With that they open with that amazing "Help Is on the Way" and just.
Well, that was right before the album. Wasn't that like right? That was sort of like to debut the album and.
Because
that Bill Graham intro. I mean, of course, my favorite Bill Graham intro is the Live Adventures of. If you haven't noticed the 25 signs that we have. Was that him? Yeah, is he on that one? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain.
But yeah, where he gives that, where he's just like Jerry Garcia, and then like everybody's like the Grateful Dead. Yeah, we start going and Help Us Away. So. Yeah, man, great stuff. So, shall we close it up here? We got 6 people on. Anybody? What do you guys want to chat about? I still got a little bit of time. If you guys want to chat,
I got.
Let's throw it through the chat. What would you guys like to talk about?
Anything. Give us something complicated and thought provoking. Okay, nobody.
Chat's a little delayed. There's a little bit of a delay, so
I'm just kidding.
They're probably just hearing it right now and just typing. So, yeah, here we go. Nice to revisit the studio stuff sometimes. Listen to Ace and Anthem the other day. Anthem of the Sun is.
I was thinking about Anthem today. That's probably my favorite early album of theirs. The one I go back to most often.
I just love how the other one, how it just sort of like. like is in the headphones going back and forth, back and forth.
I heard Dupree's Diamond Blues, the studio version, today on the Grateful Dead channel when I was driving. Um, there's some very interesting stuff going on in that song specifically. From Jerry's vocal delivery, it
Mhm.
almost seems like and maybe it's just me, but it almost seems like he's trying to catch up with the song, if I'm making any sense.
Yeah. Well, and again, sometimes
It's
that's just, that's the like the vocal phasing or anything like that. They're, putting that little bit of a delay on it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know, that album is one that's like when you meet people that like are like, yeah, I like that album. Like you're like, okay.
What's become of the baby, man?
Like, it's in Oxmo Oxa is sort of the same way too, where there's like a lot of sort of like I love that. I love sort of the rough cut of that, and it's cool that they finally put that vinyl mix out, like whenever that was for the
Well,
for
yeah,
the
I
album.
remember like you when this is years ago when you and I first started talking, you were like, have you heard the original version of this? And I said no, and you were like, oh, it's completely different. You've got it. It's like because it's like '73. They go in there and start changing and
Yep,
remixing it rather and all that stuff. And
yep,
I kind of was kind of like like Cosmic Charlie. I was kind of like, oh, okay, I never thought, but hearing the original verse was like, this is one of the best Dead tunes ever.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah. The original, I'm gonna have to go with, and it makes sense. And I think Phil has kind of gone on record and said, where they redid the Anthem of the Sun too, when they reissued those in the '70s, like '73, when it was on the Palm Tree Warner Brother label.
Mhm.
He was said that like they made it more sort of that was sort of what the sound was in the '70s, right? Like that was sort of like when they mixed records. Because isn't there like what's the one that's it's I think it's Born Cross-Eyed, or it's like there's like a chord at the very end that's on one record that's not on the
Well,
original Anthem. Yeah,
the single version, the album version, of the remix version, like three different versions of that, and
yeah.
they're all different. There's of course subtleties between the three.
Uh, Craig says Anthem of the Sun has always been his first pick.
Yeah,
Craig, I
it's hard to
mean,
argue that.
I mean, number one album, number one Grateful Dead album. That's that's not a conversation for tonight, but that's difficult. That is
Skull and
extremely
Roses.
Skull and Roses. I like Skeletons from the Closet. That's my favorite Grateful Dead album. No,
All right,
uh,
all right, all right, all right. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this.
okay.
Let's do this. Live Dead, Skull and Roses, Europe '72. Which one are you taking? You can only
Ooh.
pick uno.
Oh,
One.
I'm gonna go Live Dead.
Really? Well, you just comfortable just leaving Skull and Roses just to like sit there?
I think.
Bertha
I mean, to me,
playing in the band.
the
Wharf Rat.
turn on your love light that's on Live Dead is just to me it's just that primal like that drum break in Turn on Your Love Light is just because the first time I ever heard that was on Skeletons from the Closet, like many people in the shorter version that was on that one, but
Yeah.
like I don't know that the sound that I don't know I love that early Primal Dead.
There's no wrong answer, so
Yeah.
either which way.
Um, Trevor says, have you ever heard of Crumblin? Kruangbin. Discovered them this week.
No. What is that? Tell us all about it.
Um, yeah, Trevor, can you elaborate on that? Craig says Skull and Roses by a hair. Europe 72 and Live Dead third. Well, Craig, we all can't be perfect.
You know what? That is your opinion, Mark, but I'm right there with Craig.
Yeah.
That's the order.
I mean, Europe 72 there's a lot. Three discs. There's a lot to that. I mean, in the vinyl experience, but you do have a lot of, you have a lot of tunes that are on there that are sort of Grateful Dead staples, right? You have that stuff that moved on to the latter career. Hey, Mark Neely says, any thoughts on John Phillips' solo record, Wolf King of L.A.? Thanks for stopping by, Mark, first off. But yeah, that's a great album. That's pretty cool. And I'll tell you what, there's another John Phillips record, and I can't think of what it's called right now, that he did with Keith Richards is on some of it. I'm gonna consult the internet right now, that I had on CD. I'm a huge Mamas and the Papas fan. My father was a big fan as well. Probably still is. He definitely still is. But he Pay Pack and Follow. That's it. Have you ever heard this one, Steve?
I have not. I've skimmed the first album,
Hold it to the chest there.
but I'm not. I'm not familiar with this at all. So I'm gonna let you take this.
Pay Pack and Follow is pretty cool. It was released after he had passed away, but there is like Mick Jagger's on it, Keith is on it as well too, and Ron Wood as well. There's not really like I wouldn't say that there's any like standout tracks on it, but it's like a really cool sort of entry into his catalog. But and, talking about Wolf King of L.A. So of course John Phillips wrote Me and My Uncle, right? So the most played Grateful Dead song, right?
There's always a connection there, man.
Yep.
It always 6 degrees of separation.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's a really cool. I mean, I think Mississippi is kind of like the big track on that, but that is definitely a cool record to check out. It's sort of like him on a beach. Well, the first is like him in a profile with a top hat. And then on the back, he's like on a beach with like a fur coat and all that. But yeah, that's definitely a cool record. And you don't see that often. That's one that doesn't really, you don't really see that showing up in record stores and stuff like that. So, The Dew on 1972 is ridiculous. Yes, quintessential morning dew.
Agreed.
And Trevor says, I think Europe 72 turns many people onto the Dead. Yes. I think that's
almost like one of those albums, like when you get to college, you're kind of issued that, or you ought to be issued that,
Yeah.
It's that good,
Yeah. and I think, and you and I definitely need to do, I know this is probably the third year that we've attempted to do this, where we were like, let's listen to every Europe 72 and then talk about it. This year we're going to do it. I'm going to hold us to it. We're going to make promises to ourselves that we're going to do that, and we're going to make sure, because usually we like peter out, or it's usually me. It's like by the time they get to France,
we'll do it.
I'm done.
I'm looking at it right now. So whenever you're ready, say the word.
Craig, if you want to get in on that too, maybe we can talk about that. So Steve and I usually, in the past couple of years, we've talked about listening to each one of the Europe 72 shows on the day that it was released, on the anniversary. Because this year, Steve, guess what? It's going to be the 50th anniversary, so we have to do it.
That's why we've been procrastinating and delaying, Mark, because consciously we knew we need to make this a big celebration, man.
That's right, we will.
There needs to be cake and kegs and hats.
So that's my promise. So to our viewers,
yeah,
if we get to Easter, if we're still around by that time, so
I'm sure we will be.
We'll see.
Let's knock on some wood for that one.
Yeah. So Craig says he'll jump in for sure. All right.
Great. Yeah.
There you go. You're in the club. Yeah. So what else? Any final thoughts here? Why don't we close it up here? What else do you guys want to hear about? I know you talked about your favorite Grateful Dead live records.
Well, live period. We
can't do this in 15 minutes.
Dude, I've been thinking about this. Dude, I'm telling you right now, my favorite is from February to April of 71. That's put a stamp on it. Dude, that's it. To me, that's peak dead. And just my opinion. I'm not gonna argue with anybody. Somebody says 80, 90, 90, or June of 69. I'm not gonna
Without a
argue
net
with
is
anybody.
amazing. Without a net is an
Yeah,
amazing
dude,
album.
that's what I'm saying. That's the beauty of this. There's no wrong answer. It's all preferences,
Yeah,
and that's it's all good.
yeah.
Except for 78. Other than that, it's all good.
I
Hey,
mean,
if there's a good 78 show, I'm all ears for it.
there's some
But
good ones out
they
there. Yeah, the Red Rock stuff is that 78 or is that
no,
79?
yeah, no, that's 78.
That stuff's good.
Dude, they were so tired and so burnt out from 77. Dude, it's lethargic, and it's just, dude, 78 just does absolutely nothing for me. Every time I see 78, it's me like, oh, let's see what up this on. I fall off my chair.
Oh no, no, don't do that. Oh, turn this way. Don't fall off your chair. No, no. Yeah.
So no, it's immediate. It's like hearing U2. As soon as it comes on, I'm
Where the
flipping
streets
channels.
have no name.
Not a fan.
Yeah. Steve, baseball. Uh, World Series. Any final thoughts on the World Series? You got the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that Houston lost. So
Yeah. I I
so
I think that's sort of what everybody kind of expected, me included.
so
So hey, talk to me too. Like, so you're from the South, right?
that is true.
Right? I think that's where you're from.
Whoa, this is where is this going?
So the Atlanta Braves. So like,
Yes.
is that like a team that like people from like, because there is no like North Carolina or South Carolina baseball team, right? There's not
No,
really.
not at all. It's
So
all it's they're all Braves fans.
okay, so that's just the way it is. Okay, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
from like Virginia all the way down into
Well,
I guess it's
Baltimore,
just
yeah, you got. I think a lot of folks from Virginia or Baltimore fans. So
well, yeah. I mean, the Orioles are my favorite team, so there's that.
yeah,
So,
just based on Brooks Robinson, right? And
well, Cal Ripken,
Ripken, yeah,
Reggie Jackson, they played that lost season there in '76.
I forgot about that.
So yeah, see, everybody does.
So
So yeah,
he went from the Orioles to and then '77 he was with the Yankees, right?
yep,
Free
and won a
agent.
World Series. Yep.
Boy,
So
that might have been different had he stayed with the O's.
yeah, I'd think about the '79 series with Jackson in the lineup. That'd have been something.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
Well,
but I don't know. Your Pirates on fire, man. They nobody could out hit Dave Parker in that series. The guy's just a monster. The guy could look at a ball and make it go out of the stadium. So
that's such a great set. I told you about that. I watched the 1960s. I got the DVD for the
I'd love
1960s.
to.
The very
I'd love
last
to
game.
see that.
You know,
I'd
and
love to see
it's
that,
so
man.
funny like watching it because it just seems like so, even though it's like 1960, it's like whoa, like Dylan's first album came out in 1962. So I think about like for me anything that happened before that first Bob Dylan album, like that's like ancient history. You know what I mean? Like it seems so old. Like it's just like
Yeah.
it just is whatever. It's more like that is more 1950s than it is 1960s. That's just the way it is. But
Well, yeah, I think Dylan is probably a good bench post, to
yeah.
kind of like, maybe even Buddy Holly or something, could have kind of like draw the
Well,
line between,
well,
old and
you think about I often think about the music that like if you think about the singles that came out in like maybe 19 I always think like 57 is sort of that beginning period for rock and roll because that's sort of the Buddy Holly,
your Little Richard and Chuck
Little
Berry, all
Richard,
that.
Bill Haley and the Comets and things like that where you have that kind of time frame and then it's sort of that ball starts spinning and then it's like Dylan and the Beatles and and 62, 63, 64, stuff like that and then
Takes off from there. Yeah.
exactly. So like I always think about music that way and even too like there's a lot of those singles like this is a weird conversation but maybe we can elaborate on this a little bit more because I don't really have like a lot of good examples other than like a few right now but like the song Alley Oop, right? So Kim Fowley, right?
Yeah.
Alley Oop, right? Like that's 1957 or maybe 58 but and then of course you have like the Phil Spector and the Teddy Bears, like To Know Him Is to Love Him is that same time frame. So like that's really like the precursor to all of that stuff. Like, and then anything before that, it's like like Benny Goodman.
Is there anything before it? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I was going
that's
to say
yeah,
that's kind of the ground zero. That's kind of the starting point.
yeah. Like it's with rock music, it's just very strange that you have that. And then of course Hank Williams. Is Hank Williams passed away in '58? Is that what it was? When did Hank Williams, the original?
58, 59.
Let's consult the internet because this is gonna
I think
bug
you're
me.
right. I think it's 58.
Hank Williams, American songwriter.
Are you ready for some foot? Oh wait,
53.
wrong
No,
guy.
I was way off. I was way
Oh
off.
wow,
53. Why did I think that was
Sam
58?
Samsonite. I was way off.
Swanson,
Slippy, maybe it's on
Slippy.
the briefcase.
Oh man, good stuff. So, all right, I think that we kind of got the chats dying down. Trevor said, "Thanks, guys. It was a good time. Good night."
Thank
So,
you. Thanks for joining
yeah,
us.
I think this is probably a good place uh, to sign off. So, hey guys, thanks for watching. If you want to know when we're doing these, I think that's important.
It's
Uh,
just a guess, so
it's
we'll keep you
yeah,
up. No,
yeah. Um, there
we
is
should
a
probably
face,
hammer out
yeah, yeah.
a.
There is a Facebook page, and if you're watching this for the first time and you're not watching it live, um, if you go to the Minglewood Preservation Society and Pit Barbecue, if you search it on Facebook, that is our page.
Guaranteed, we'll be the only ones
Right, it'll be
with
easy to
that
find.
name.
Yeah. You can basically, I promise that I will put any live kind of doodads on there just to kind of let you know. I think we can probably say that's safe to say that we'll probably do it either Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. I think that Monday and the grown man record dudes are on Friday, so we don't want to. I don't want to compete with
No,
those guys. So I want to watch that show on Friday nights. So, but that is it. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you all the next time. So thanks for all the good chat.